He hadn't spoken to another soul in 6 months. Not really spoken, anyway. The kind of talking that asks something of you. More than words, but attention, heart, honesty. Rylan Mercer didn't have much left of those things. Not after what happened last winter. His cabin sat tucked against a wall of pine trees halfway up Snake Ridge, far enough from a nearest town that he could go weeks without seeing another human face. That's how he liked it, or told himself he did. Some days, though, he'd stand by the window with his coffee, listening to the trees groan in the wind, and he'd catch himself thinking about her. Not about her face, he'd worked hard to blur that part, but the sound of her voice when she told him she was going to stay this time, and the silence afterward. It was raining again. Had been for hours, heavy and cold, like it meant to wash away the whole mountain. The path down to the stream was just a slick, brown mess now. Rylan didn't mind the wet. It kept people off the road. And the road, steep, washed out, and overgrown, hadn't seen a wagon in months. That's what he liked best about it. No neighbors. No church bells. No more women promising things they couldn't give. Still, he wasn't a cruel man. When a knock came, sharp and frantic, he didn't think twice before opening the door. She stood there soaked to the skin, barefoot, dress clinging to her legs like it had been dipped in a river. Her hair, black as soot and tangled with pine needles, hung heavy over her shoulders. Her eyes were wide, too wide, and even before she spoke, Rylan could tell she wasn't just running from the rain. I didn't mean to scare you, she said, voice tight, shaking. I saw your light. I need somewhere to wait it out. Rylan looked past her at the storm. Rain pounded the porch roof like it was angry. She didn't have a bag. No coat. No shoes. His first thought was she'd been in a wreck, maybe thrown from a wagon, maybe left behind. But there were no wagon tracks on that road, and the mud outside was clean except for her prints. You hurt? He asked, voice hoarse from disuse. She shook her head too fast. Just cold. He stepped back and let her in. He didn't offer his name. Didn't ask for hers. The fire was low, so he threw on another log. She stood near it with her arms around herself, trembling. Rylan brought her a wool blanket and a tin cup of water. She took them both, but kept her eyes on the floor. Storm came down quick, he said, just to say something. She nodded. Didn't think it'd be this bad. He waited. Most people, when they're scared, they talk. They spill things they don't mean to. But she didn't. She just sipped the water and stared at the flames like they were telling her something she was trying hard to understand. There were little things that didn't add up. No scratches on her feet, though the road up was all rock and brush. No mud on her hemline, which made no sense in this rain. And her dress wasn't the sort a woman wore to travel. It was fine fabric, thin, the kind used for church weddings or Sunday dances. Not meant for walking through the wilderness. Rylan didn't ask. He'd learned long ago not to poke at things that didn't want to be opened. He just let her be, and later, when she started shivering so hard the tin cup rattled in her hands, he gave her one of his shirts and turned his back so she could change. He set her up on the cot across the room and took the floor himself back to the fire. Sleep came slow. The storm dragged on, thunder low and mean in the distance. Every so often, he'd hear her breathing shift, sharp inhales, like she was waking from a bad dream but didn't want to cry out. Sometime in the middle of the night, Rylan woke to the sound of her moving. Not just shifting in the cot, but walking. He opened one eye, just enough to see her by the firelight. She wasn't looking at him. She stood near the door, one hand on the latch, the other pressed to the wall beside it like she needed something to hold her up. She didn't open it, though. Just stood there, barefoot again, eyes fixed on the dark woods outside. You running from someone? He asked, voice quiet, not wanting to scare her. She flinched, turned her head slowly. No. He pushed up onto one elbow. You sure about that? Her jaw tightened. She didn't answer. Rylan sat all the way up now. You don't owe me anything, miss. But if someone's chasing you, I ought to know. I'm not being chased, she said, voice flat. He let the silence hang for a while. She stepped away from the door, came back to the cot. But she didn't lie down. Just sat with her hands in her lap, staring at the wood floor. You got a name? Rylan asked. She looked up, surprised. You don't have to give me your real one, he said. Just something I can call you. She hesitated. Anna. He nodded. All right, Anna. Rylan didn't tell her his. He figured she wasn't ready for that kind of trade. By morning, the rain had stopped. Mist hung over the trees like breath, the kind that came from something still alive but hiding. Rylan made coffee, then oatmeal. She didn't eat much, just a few spoonfuls before pushing the bowl away. He noticed the bruises then, faint, almost healed, along her wrists. Finger marks. The kind of man leaves when he's not worried who sees them later. You married? He asked, without looking up from the fire. She didn't answer, just stood and walked to the window. The silence stretched too long. Rylan didn't push. That afternoon, she helped him chop kindling, her arms trembling with each swing of the axe. She insisted on doing it anyway, said she wanted to be useful. Rylan let her. There was something hard in her now, like whatever she'd run from had burned out the softness. That night, she asked if he had a Bible. He brought it down from the shelf, old and worn, pages thin as ash. She didn't read from it, just held it in her lap, fingertips on the leather cover, quiet. Do you believe in forgiveness? She asked suddenly. Rylan looked at her. Not much, no. She nodded like she expected that. Me neither. There was more she wasn't saying. He could feel it, like thunder still far off, but rolling closer. He didn't know what she'd done, or what had been done to her, but something was coming. He could see in the way she held herself. Tight, always ready to run, but not sure where to go. And somehow, in the thick quiet of the cabin, Rylan realized he didn't want her to go. Not yet. Not just because of the storm. Not just because he pitied her, but because when she stood by that window, shadowed and still, he saw himself. Saw the same weight behind her eyes. The same need to disappear. And for the first time in months, he didn't feel so alone. By the third morning, the sound of hooves broke the stillness. Rylan had just stepped outside to chop wood when he heard it, slow, deliberate, like someone riding through fog without urgency. Anna was inside, sweeping ashes from the hearth, but she froze when she heard the same. Her shoulders tensed. Rylan saw her eyes dart to the window before she dropped the broom. A single rider came into view between the trees. Rylan didn't recognize him at first, not with the brim of his hat pulled low and a duster coat trailing behind him like a shadow. But as the man got closer, Rylan's mouth went dry. Emory West, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Anna looked over. You know him? Rylan nodded once. We used to ride fence for the same cattle company out near Dry Creek. Long time ago. Emory pulled up near the porch and swung down. His eyes flicked over Rylan, then shifted to the open cabin door. He didn't smile. He never did. Emory had a face like cracked stone, lean, sharp, and unreadable. Didn't expect to find you up here, he said. Rylan gave a slow nod. Didn't expect to be found. Emory looked past him toward the dark shape of Anna, just inside. She yours? Rylan's jaw flexed. No. Emory didn't press. Just looked down, brushed rain off his coat, and said, Mind if I come in? Rylan didn't like the idea, but refusing him would raise more suspicion than letting him inside. He stepped aside. Emory entered, scanning the room like a man taking inventory. His eyes landed on Anna, and he tipped his head just enough to acknowledge her. Ma'am. She nodded back, but didn't say a word. Emory took a seat by the fire without asking. Rylan watched as he loosened his coat, revealing a pistol holstered high under his arm. Not the kind a ranch hand wore. Not anymore. So, Emory began, staring into the flames. You been up here since winter? More or less. Funny thing, Emory said, his voice light but careful. A girl went missing south of Canyon Bend 4 days ago. Pretty little thing. Dark hair. Some say she was last seen with a man. Anna turned away, pretending to stack wood. Rylan felt the weight of her silence. You think I had something to do with it? Rylan asked flatly. Emory smiled, or tried to. Didn't say that. Just that some folks are looking. You one of them? Sort of. I do favors now and then. Ride with a deputy when he asks. You know how it is. Ryland didn't respond. He didn't like the way Emory talked. Soft, but with hooks behind every word. I got a name, Emory added, tossing it out like bait. Said she might go by Anna. Or maybe that's just what she told people. Ryland didn't look at her, but he felt the way she stiffened. She ain't said much, Ryland muttered. Emory leaned back. Eye her again. Doesn't need to. She's the kind of quiet that speaks louder than most. A long silence followed. The fire crackled. Rain ticked against the roof like distant footfalls. Anna moved slowly to the corner of the room, keeping her back to the wall. Emory stood. Well, I'll be heading back down toward Clearwater. If you hear anything, Ryland. I won't. Figured. As Emory stepped out, he paused on the porch. You always had a soft spot for lost causes. Ryland didn't answer. When the sound of hoofbeats faded into the trees, Anna let out a breath she'd been holding since Emory walked in. Her hands were shaking. He's not just helping a deputy, she whispered. He's hunting me. Ryland turned to her. You know him? No, but I've seen men like him before. He's the kind that doesn't stop. Ryland studied her. What happened, Anna? I need to know now. She sank down onto the edge of the cot, her eyes dark and tired. He didn't lie. There was a man, but I didn't run from him. I left him because he wasn't going to stop hurting me. Ryland didn't move, just listened. He wasn't a husband, not legally, but we were together long enough. Everyone said I was lucky he wanted me at all. After a while, I stopped fighting back. The last week I hit him, first time I ever did. He went down the stairs, hit his head. I thought he was dead. Ryland stared. And if he wasn't, then he'll find me, or send someone who will. Ryland let that settle between them. He'd seen the kind of man she described, had been raised by one, and now Emory was sniffing around like a hound with blood on its tongue. Later that night, Ryland stepped outside to smoke and found another man sitting on a fallen log just past the tree line. He hadn't heard him ride in, hadn't heard anything at all. Evening, the man said without turning around. Ryland's hand slid to the knife at his belt. Don't like visitors. Don't like the rain either. But it comes. The man stood, slow and easy. He was older, with silver hair and a long gray coat. A small scar ran through his left eyebrow, splitting it like a creek fork. Something about him set Ryland's nerves on edge. You a friend of Emory's? The man shook his head. No, I follow after him sometimes. Clean up his messes. Keep things quiet. Ryland narrowed his eyes. What's your name? Silas. No last name worth using. Silas stepped closer, boots crunching wet leaves. That girl in your cabin, she's not a runaway. She's not a thief. She's not even the problem. Then what is? The men who want her back. They're the problem. Ryland frowned. Why? Because she saw something she wasn't meant to. Something that ties them to a fire in Yarrow Canyon. Something that left 5 people dead. Ryland stared at him. What did she see? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe too much. Doesn't matter. The kind of men I'm talking about, they don't take risks. Silas turned, as if to leave, then paused. You keep her here, you'll have to choose. Stay out of it, or in a part of it. Ryland watched him vanish into the trees without another word. Back inside, Anna sat by the fire again, silent. Ryland poured himself a drink, the burn in his throat grounding him for a moment. The walls of the cabin felt thinner now, the woods less safe. What started as a shelter from a storm had turned into something else, something dangerous. He saw it clearly now. Anna hadn't just run from a cruel man. She'd stepped into a mess stitched together by secrets and half-truths. And now he was in it too, whether he liked it or not. The following night brought a cold that cut deeper than usual. Ryland had lived through winters that snapped trees in half and froze horses solid. But this cold wasn't weather, it was dread settling in his bones. After Silas's visit, Ryland kept the rifle closer. He didn't tell Anna about the man in the woods. She already had too much fear coiled behind her eyes, and something told him she wouldn't sleep at all if she knew more men were circling. Anna was quieter now, less jumpy, but there was a heaviness to her steps, a distance in her gaze that hadn't been there before. Rylan noticed she touched the Bible often, not reading it, just pressing her hand to the leather cover like it was something solid to hold on to when the rest of the world was slipping. That morning, Rylan caught her by the barn. She'd taken the saddle off his old mare and was checking the girth strap like she'd done it 100 times before. "You thinking of going somewhere?" he asked, leaning against the fence. She didn't turn. "You said it yourself. Keeping me here makes you part of it." Rylan chewed the inside of his cheek. "And running makes you easy to find. I've run before." "Yeah? How'd that work out for you?" That shut her up. She let the strap fall and turned toward him, eyes tired and angry. "I'm trying to protect you, Rylan." "Don't," he said. "Don't try to carry what ain't yours. You didn't drag this trouble here alone." A flicker of emotion crossed her face, guilt, or something near it. She looked away. "I know you don't trust me," she said, "but I didn't lie about him. I just didn't tell you everything. I figured." She hesitated. "The man I was with, he wasn't some farmhand or ranch drunk. His name's Elias Cross. You know it." Rylan felt his gut knot. Everyone knew Elias Cross. His name rode ahead of him like thunder. Rancher, lawman, outlaw. It depended who you asked. He owned 500 head of cattle, a saloon in Cold Hollow, and half the sheriff's office in Wilkes County. And he wasn't known for letting go of what he claimed. He hurt a lot of people, Anna said, and they let him because he's got money, friends, a badge when he needs one. I stayed because, well, I don't know why. Because I was scared. Because he said I'd die if I didn't." Rylan stared at her. "So what changed?" Her voice dropped. "I saw him kill a man. Out behind the saloon. He thought I was upstairs. But I came down to get my coat. I saw it all. Him and $2 others. They didn't even bury the body. Just burned it and poured liquor over the ashes like it had never happened." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I was gone that night. No note. Just rode until I couldn't ride anymore." Rylan stood there, heart pounding. If Elias Cross was looking for her, there wouldn't be a line between law and revenge. The man made his own justice and delivered it with a smile. "You should have told me," Rylan said. "I was trying to forget it," she whispered. "But I can't." Neither of them noticed the figure watching from the tree line. By nightfall, Emory was back. He didn't knock. Just opened the door like it was his own and stepped into the cabin. Rylan was at the table, Anna across from him. She jumped to her feet. Emory shut the door behind him, slow and casual. "I didn't come alone this time," he said. "So let's not make this a mess." Two men stepped in after him, rough, plain-faced, hands on their guns. They looked like the kind of men who wouldn't hesitate to beat someone half to death if asked nicely. Rylan rose. "You planning on dragging her back to Cross?" "I ain't dragging anyone," Emory said. "She comes with us, or we burn this place down and see who crawls out." "You think that'll hold up in court?" Rylan asked, keeping his voice calm even as his blood boiled. Emory grinned. "There ain't gonna be no court." Anna backed toward the hearth, hands sliding along the mantel. Rylan moved slowly, standing between her and the others. "What did he offer you?" Rylan asked. "Money?" "Land. Justice," Emory said. "The kind you don't find in books." It all happened fast. Anna grabbed the iron poker from the fireplace and swung. One of Emory's men, caught in the ribs, went down groaning. Rylan lunged at the other, slamming his shoulder into the man's gut and sending both of them crashing into the table. Gunfire cracked. The lamp shattered. The cabin exploded in smoke and shouts. Rylan wrestled the pistol from the thug's hand and slammed the butt across his face. The man dropped like stone. Emory cursed, firing a shot that missed by inches, embedding into the wall near Anna's head. She dove for the back door, shoving it open. Rylan grabbed the rifle from beside the window and turned just as Emory tried to run. Rylan fired. The shot echoed across the hills. Emory dropped. Outside, the cold bit through his clothes as Rylan stepped into the dark. Anna was near the barn, trembling, holding her shoulder. Blood soaked her sleeve. "You hit." She nodded, eyes glassy. "Just grazed." Rylan grabbed her and pulled her close, just for a second. We have to go. More will come. They rode through the night. No lights, no trails. Rylan knew these woods like he knew his own skin. They cut north through dry creeks and animal paths, across a ridge where the wind howled like the past itself was chasing them. By dawn, they reached the old ranger outpost near Devil's Hollow. It had been empty for years, long since abandoned after a fire took most of the second floor. But the stone base still stood, and it was dry. Rylan built a fire and sat beside her while she cleaned the wound. "Why'd you come back for me?" she asked, voice small. "I didn't know I left," he said. She looked at him, confused. "You were never just passing through, Anna. Not once you stepped through that door." She looked away, blinking fast. "He won't stop. Not Elias. Not until he sees me dead." "We make a plan," Rylan said. "We stop running." "By doing what?" "By turning him in." Anna laughed, bitter. "You think anyone's going to arrest him? He is the law in half the territory." Rylan met her eyes. "Then we do it our way." That afternoon, Silas found them. He rode in slow, hands up, no gun drawn. "I told you there'd be a choice," he said to Rylan. "Looks like you made it." Rylan stood, rifle at his side. "You gonna stop us?" Silas shook his head. "I don't stop people. I warn them." "What now?" Silas dismounted. "Now, you listen. There's a man in Silver Bluff. Name's Orrin Park. Used to ride with Cross before things got bloody. He flipped once, then disappeared. But I know where he is." Rylan frowned. "What good does that do?" "He's got proof. Ledgers, names, maybe even a list of who Cross paid to look the other way. You get that? You have something that talks louder than bullets." Anna stood, wiping her hands. "Why are you helping us?" Silas looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "Because I used to be one of them, and there ain't many chances to undo a thing once it's done. This is one." They rode for Silver Bluff the next morning. Anna didn't sleep. Neither did Rylan. They took turns watching the trail behind them, waiting for the next rider, the next ambush, the next betrayal. The sky was gray, stretched tight with clouds that never broke. The land grew rougher, the trees sparser. Every town they passed through felt like it had ears. When they reached the edge of Silver Bluff, they found a safe house just off the old smelter road. Silas had set it up long ago, and nobody else knew it existed. Inside, Rylan stared at the map Silas unrolled across the table. "Orrin lives in a mine housing, number 14. Doesn't talk to anyone. Keeps his head down." Anna traced a finger down the edge of the paper. "And if Cross already knows we're looking for him, then we're already too late," Silas said. "But I don't think we are." "Not yet." Rylan looked at Anna. "You sure about this?" She nodded. "I stopped being scared when I saw what he did to that man. Now I just want it to mean something." And for the first time, Rylan saw something new in her. Not just fear, not just pain. Purpose. Rage, maybe. But something clearer. Stronger. That night, Rylan sat awake while Anna slept. He watched the embers in the stove and thought about what came next. Not just the plan, not just the risk, but the end of it. What would be left if they made it through? If there be a world where Anna could rest, where she didn't have to look over her shoulder anymore. He wasn't sure if he believed in peace, but he believed in fighting for someone who deserved it. And Anna had fought long enough alone. The rain started just after midnight, soft at first, then steady, pounding the roof of the safe house like it wanted to force its way in. Rylan sat near the window, boots on the floor, eyes fixed on the black woods beyond. He hadn't slept since they rode into Silver Bluff. Every shadow could be a gun. Every branch snap a signal. And now that the truth was within reach, the cost of it felt heavier than ever. Anna stirred from the cot in the corner, face pale in the firelight. "You still awake?" "Can't afford not to be." She pulled the blanket tighter, sitting up slowly. "You ever think we're already too deep in this to get out clean?" Rylan nodded. "All the time." Anna looked toward the map on the table, the one they'd gone over again and again. Orrin Park's cabin, the surrounding woods, every trail in and out of the mine housing. "I keep thinking, if we do this, if we actually bring Elias down, what then? Where do we even go?" Rylan leaned back, arms folded. That's the part one haven't figured out. She gave a tired smile. Me neither. The next morning, Silas returned from the edge of town with word. Orrin had been spotted at the lumber depot, looking nervous, leaving quick. The safe house wasn't safe anymore. Either he'd seen something or someone had seen him. Either way, they had hours, maybe less. They packed fast. Anna kept the ledger bag slung across her shoulder like it was more valuable than gold. In a way, it was the only thing that could prove what Elias had done. The bribes, the names, the quiet killings disguised as accidents. As they moved through the dense trees toward the cabin at Mine House 14, Anna walked beside Rylan, close enough that he could feel her nerves in every stiff step. "You ready?" he asked quietly. "No," she said, "but I'm doing it anyway." They found Orrin in the cabin, just like Silas said. He opened the door wide-eyed, his face pale and sweat-soaked. "I told Silas not to come back," he hissed, yanking them inside. "You have any idea who's watching me now?" "We don't have time for a sermon," Rylan said. "We need what you have." Orrin looked at Anna, something flickering in his gaze. "You're the girl. The one Cross said killed his brother." Anna didn't flinch. His brother was beating a 12-year-old girl behind the saloon. "I stopped him." Orrin's lips pressed into a line. He left that part out. He pulled out a metal box from beneath the floorboards, set it on the table, and opened it. Inside were 3 bound ledgers, old and faded, and a packet of letters wrapped in oilcloth. "Everything's here," Orrin said. "Enough to ruin a dozen men. But if you take it, you better be ready for what's coming. Elias won't go to court. He'll come with fire and iron." Rylan nodded. He already did. They left with the box, riding hard north toward Cold Hollow, where the circuit judge was due in 3 days. That town was no safer than the one they left, but it had something Silver Bluff didn't: a courthouse and a chance. But halfway through Dry Pass, they found the trail burned. Smoke still curled from blackened branches, and 3 bodies lay face down in the dirt, miners by the looks of their coats. A warning. Anna stared at the corpses, her face tight. "He knows." "Yeah," Rylan said. "He does." They moved in silence the rest of the way, sleeping in barns, caves, wherever they could, never staying long. Silas split from them, promising to ride ahead and warn the judge. If he could get the man to Cold Hollow early, they might just get the evidence into his hands before Cross arrived. But trust was thin now. Every rider on the horizon made Anna reach for the revolver tucked in her skirt. Every noise in the brush made Rylan's hand twitch toward his rifle. At a small river crossing 2 days out from Cold Hollow, their fears caught up with them. 6 riders emerged from the woods, surrounding them before either had time to reach for a weapon. Rylan raised his hands, motioning for Anna to stay still. Elias himself rode in last. His face was smooth, his mustache trimmed neat, and his coat was the kind you only wore if you didn't expect to be touched by dirt. He looked like a man who'd never lost, never bled. "Well," Elias said, dismounting, "I'll be damned. You made it farther than I thought." Anna's voice didn't tremble. "You going to kill us here, or make a show of it back in town?" Elias smiled, walking closer. "I'm not going to kill you, sweetheart. Not unless you make me. I want what you stole. That ledger. Give it to me, and I might let you walk away." Anna's chin lifted. "You don't get to decide what I walk away from." Rylan shifted, careful not to draw too much attention. His rifle was still strapped to his saddle, too far to reach without catching a bullet. But he wasn't thinking about himself. He was watching the men. One of them, young, blonde, too green to be part of Elias's usual crew, looked nervous, sweating, shifting his weight. "You ever shoot a man before?" Rylan asked the boy, loud enough for the others to hear. The boy's eyes flicked to him. "Don't," Elias warned, stepping in front of Rylan. "You shoot me," Rylan said, still looking at the kid. "You better be ready for what comes after. She dies, you think the law is going to forget? Think it won't come looking for you, not him?" The boy's hand twitched. One of the others shouted something. Chaos broke in a second. Rylan lunged for Anna, pushing her down as bullets flew. The young man turned and ran, and one of the others took a shot at his back. Screams, dust, fire. Rylan managed to get to his rifle, fired twice, dropping one of Elias's men. Another screamed and fell, clutching his leg. Elias ducked behind his horse, shouting orders. Anna dragged the ledger bag under a fallen tree, shielding it with her body. When it ended, 3 men were dead. 2 had fled. Elias was gone. They didn't chase him. Anna clutched her side, bleeding. Not deep, but enough to scare Rylan. "I'm fine," she insisted through clenched teeth. "Just get us to town." They reached Cold Hollow the next day. The judge was already there, thanks to Silas. It all happened faster than either expected. The courthouse filled with deputies, townsfolk, men from nearby ranches who'd heard whispers. Anna stood at the front, voice clear, eyes unwavering as she read the names aloud from the ledgers. The sheriff of Wilkes County, a state marshal, for ranch owners. Each had taken money or silence in exchange for Elias's crimes. When the judge ordered warrants, Rylan felt something inside him release. But peace didn't come. That night, the hotel where Anna was staying caught fire. They got her out in time, but the builders was lost. The message was clear. The judge posted guards, and Rylan never left her side. She slept fitfully, waking from nightmares she couldn't speak aloud. "I keep seeing him," she whispered one night. "Not just now, from before. In the saloon, in the house. Like he's still in the room." Rylan sat on the edge of the bed. "You're safe now. You don't know that." "No," he said, "but I'm still here. That has to count for something." She looked up at him, and for the first time since that rainy night at his cabin, she let herself lean against his shoulder. "I don't want to be alone anymore," she whispered. He rested his chin on her hair. "You're not." But outside, thunder cracked. Because Elias wasn't gone. Not yet. He'd slipped through the cracks again, disappearing before the deputies could find him. Half his men had scattered. The rest were dead or in cuffs. But Elias Cross didn't vanish. He retreated, watching, waiting. Rylan knew the man wouldn't give up. Men like Elias didn't go quietly. And neither would they. As Anna sat by the fire, reading over the last of Oren's letters, documents that might bring in more than just Elias, Rylan stood at the window, hand resting on his rifle. The storm outside was just starting. But this time, they weren't running. They were waiting. The storm didn't let up for 3 days. Rain came in waves, soaking Cold Hollow's streets until even the horses refused to move. The townsfolk kept to themselves, doors barred, lamps low. It was the kind of weather that made men restless, made them believe something was about to happen. And they were right. Rylan barely slept. He spent each night by the window of the boarding house, rifle in hand, watching the road for movement. He could feel it in his bones. Elias was close. Too close. Anna had changed. Not on the outside, but in the way she walked, the way she listened. She didn't flinch at thunder anymore. She didn't look behind her shoulder. But Rylan saw the way her hands curled into fists at her sides, how her jaw clenched when someone mentioned Elias' name. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was waiting to strike. On the 4th morning, word came. Elias had been seen near the North Ridge, riding with 2 others. One of them was Deputy Riker. Rylan didn't need to hear it twice. He slammed the door behind him before the deputy could finish his sentence. Anna was already pulling on her coat. "Riker?" she asked. "Why would he?" "Because he's been working both sides," Rylan said. This whole time, they saddled their horses in silence. The rain had softened, now just a slow drizzle that clung to everything. Rylan thought back to that night Anna had appeared on his porch, soaked and shivering. So much had changed since then, but the same weight still hung over them. The same storm, only deeper now. They reached North Ridge by midday. The trees were silent, leaves dripping, fog curling along the ground. Every sound was muffled. It felt like walking into a grave. They found a camp in a hollow below the ridge. Elias was there, sitting by the fire like he'd been waiting for them. Riker stood behind him, rifle in hand. The third man was young, unfamiliar, barely more than a boy. His eyes darted nervously between them all. Anna didn't hesitate. She walked forward, slow but steady, and tossed the leather satchel into the mud at Elias's feet. "You want the ledgers?" she said. "Fine. Take them." Elias didn't move. His eyes locked on hers, and he smiled. "That easy, huh?" "They've already been copied," she said. "Judge has the rest. If you kill us, it won't matter." Riker stepped forward, looking from Anna to Rylan. "It didn't have to go this way." Rylan raised his rifle. "You could have come clean." "I did what I had to do," Riker said. "You think you're better than me? You think all your bleeding heart speeches make you some kind of hero?" "I think you're a coward," Rylan said. "And I think you know it." The boy, silent until now, suddenly turned his gun on Elias. "Shut up," he barked. His hands were shaking. "All of you, just shut up." Everyone froze. Elias turned slowly, calm as ever. "Son, put the gun down. You don't know what you're doing." The boy's jaw clenched. "I know enough. I know what you did to my brother." Anna stepped toward him. "What's your name?" "Darren," he said. "Darren," she said gently. "You don't have to be like him. You can walk away." He looked at her, really looked, and his hands wavered. Then Elias moved. Too fast. He lunged at Darren, pushing the barrel aside just as it fired. The shot went wild. Riker raised his own gun, and Rylan shot first. Riker dropped, dead before he hit the ground. The camp exploded into chaos. Elias knocked the boy to the ground and dove for the satchel. Anna screamed and tackled him, grabbing for the bag. Elias struck her across the face hard. Rylan fired again, but Elias rolled, grabbing Anna as a shield. "You shoot. She dies," Elias said, panting. His face was wild now, blood at his temple. Rylan held the gun steady. "You won't kill her." "You don't know me," Elias growled. "I know you've lost," Rylan said. "You're desperate." Behind them, Darren stood, bruised but breathing. He raised his gun again. This time his hands were still. Elias didn't see it. The shot hit him square in the back. He staggered forward, mouth open in shock, and dropped to his knees. Anna slipped out his arms. Rylan rushed forward, catching her as she stumbled. Elias looked up, eyes dull. "You think this changes anything?" he rasped. "It already has," Rylan said. Elias collapsed, face in the mud, blood pooling in the rain. Anna stood shakily, wiping the blood from her lip. She looked at Darren. "You okay?" The boy nodded slowly. "He lied to everyone. My brother thought Elias would help him get clean. He ended up with a bullet in his stomach." Rylan exhaled, heart thudding. "Come on, let's get out of here." They left the hollow behind them, quiet. The rain had stopped. Back in Cold Hollow, the judge took their statements, and the news spread fast. Elias Cross was dead. Riker, too. The last of the corruption that had gripped the mining towns had been dragged into daylight. Darren testified. The boy who'd once followed Elias was now the key to the final convictions. The ledgers were turned over in full, and the law, slow but steady, did its work. But even victory had its cost. Rylan watched Anna from across the hotel lobby the night before the final hearing. She was dressed in black, her bruises fading. Her hands were steady now, but something in her had hardened. "You thinking about staying?" he asked, coming to sit beside her. She looked down. "No, I've done what I came here to do." He nodded. "Where will you go?" "I don't know. Somewhere quiet. Maybe start over." Rylan wanted to say something that would make her stay or come with him. But words didn't feel like enough. So he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "There's a place up near Eagle Bend," he said after a while. "Old cabin. Needs fixing up. Not much around but trees and sky." She smiled softly. "You offer me a roof? I'm offering you a choice." Anna looked at him, the hardness in her eyes softening. "I think I'd like that," she said. They left Cold Hollow the next day, before the papers printed the final story. No one stopped them. No one needed to. They'd given the town back its breath. That was enough. And as they rode north, the hills rising ahead and the sun breaking through the clouds, Anna looked over at Rylan. "You know," she said, "you never asked why I really ran that night." Rylan looked at her. "Why?" She paused, then said quietly, "Because I knew if I didn't leave then, I'd never leave at all." He didn't answer right away. Then, "Maybe you weren't running from a storm. Maybe you were running towards something." She looked ahead, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe I still am." The cabin near Eagle Bend sat in a small hollow surrounded by tall pines and the distant rush of a creek that never dried, even in the heat of summer. It wasn't much, just a crooked roof, weathered porch boards, and windows that needed replacing. But it was quiet. It was theirs. Rylan worked slow, carving a rhythm into the days. Mornings spent fixing the roof or cutting wood, evenings walking the land with Anna, her silence no longer guarded but thoughtful. The weight between them had shifted. It was no longer about what they'd survived. It was about what they could build. Sometimes, Anna would rise before dawn and just sit outside with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring toward the trees. Rylan didn't ask what she thought about in those moments. He knew some things don't need to be spoken. She had carried pain that no man could name. She'd lived through betrayal, loss, and a kind of fear that buries itself deep inside the chest. But she was still standing. That was enough. She never talked much about Elias after Cold Hollow. When his name came up, it was only in the facts of what he'd done, not who he had been. Maybe she was still sorting out those pieces. Maybe she'd already let them go. Rylan had learned not to press. Healing didn't follow anyone's rules. The boy, Darren, wrote them once. Said he'd moved east to live with cousins, was apprenticing with a blacksmith. Said he was trying to be better than the men who'd used him. Anna smiled quietly when she read the letter, folded it neatly, and tucked it into a book she kept near the window. They never went back to Cold Hollow. The town had its justice. It had its closure, but the ghosts still wandered its streets, and neither Rylan nor Anna had any interest in walking among them. The mountains were enough. The silence, the wind, the slow crawl of time. One night, long after the leaves had begun to turn, Anna sat at the fire with her hands wrapped around a tin cup of coffee. She watched the flames for a long time before speaking. "You ever think we'll be free of it?" she asked softly. Rylan looked up from the chair across from her. "The past. All of it. What we did. What we didn't." He stirred the embers with a stick. "I don't know. Maybe freedom's not forgetting. Maybe it's just learning to live beside it without flinching." Anna didn't answer right away, but she nodded, slow and quiet, her mouth pulled into a line that wasn't sadness exactly, just knowing. There was no perfect ending, no parade, no sudden lightness, just a slow rebuild of something broken. And maybe that was better. Real things weren't clean or easy. They left marks, and yet they still grew. By winter, the cabin had taken shape. New roof, strong beams, warm hearth. Rylan stood outside one morning, watching the snow settle over the trees, and thought about how easily he could have missed all of this. If he hadn't opened the door that night, if he'd turned her away. Inside, Anna was humming. Soft, aimless. The kind of sound that people only made when they didn't realize they were doing it. Rylan smiled. It wasn't joy exactly. It was something quieter, deeper, peace. Not the kind that forgets, but the kind that lets you keep going. The kind that makes the past a chapter, not a prison. As the wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and snow, Rylan stepped back inside, closed the door gently behind him, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't look back.